Welcome to part 2 of the resume trainings, Resume Details, brought to you by the Department of Labor and Industry and Job Service Montana. This training will cover resume details including Word templates, design themes, formatting information, and best practices when saving. Then we'll go over each of the sections of the resume in detail, discussing what to add and what not to add, and we'll end with the actual creation of your resume in Microsoft Word. In today's training, you will learn specific formatting tips to follow as you create your resume, what to include and what not to include in each specific section of your resume, and technical tips as you use Microsoft Word to create your resume. All of the pros will tell you, do not use a Word template to build your resume. They don't upload well. Everyone uses them, so you won't stand out from the crowd. They're not built to conquer applicant tracking systems. In fact, many features of typical templates do the opposite of what is needed. They often incorporate graphics or encourage you to insert a picture that will only get your resume thrown out and into the circular file, the garbage can. Lastly, the styles are usually quite outdated. By simply changing the theme, the design, the color hue, and the font options, you will create a unique design. Everyone uses the default theme of Word. That's a quick and easy way to make sure that your resume is truly unique by changing that default option. In our first section, we'll cover Formatting 101. We'll talk about margins of your document, the different font options and best choices, alignment in general, bullets, what to use, what not to use, if you were to use tables, how to do it correctly, spelling and grammar, and preferred formats. Now, as far as formatting is concerned, we'll start with margins. Keep in mind, it's not important that you find these things in Microsoft Word just yet. We'll go over these in kind of a quick fashion, and then we'll go over them in the nitty-gritty, and I'll show you how to get to each and every one of these settings. So as far as margins are concerned, 1-inch margins, which are the default margins in Microsoft Word, are fine for the most part on your document. However, it's best to skinny up the top margin of your resume to put your name front and center, and to ensure that we have as much space as possible for the valuable information that we need to add to your resume. Best practice is 1/2 inch on that top margin, so 0.5, with 1-inch margins around. If you happen to have a lot of information on your resume, you can go as small as 0.63 on the rest. That is acceptable. ATS will find it. But 0.75 is much better and looks much more uniform. Above all, make sure that your left and your right margins are always the same. As far as headers and footers are concerned, headers might seem like a really great place to put your contact information, but what happens is that it gets lost through an applicant tracking system and they might not see it at all. So it's best to choose not to use those sections. Instead, by skinning up your margin, you effectively put your name at the very top as if it were in the header, but it's actually in the body of the document. As far as font is concerned, choose something attractive yet conservative. It should be easy to read, not too small and not too large. Headings from the Style section of the Home tab in Microsoft Word work really well for section headers, although it's also acceptable to use bold, caps, or italics. Just be sure to be consistent in the use. For instance, use all section headers in bold or all section headers in caps, whatever you choose, and just make sure it's consistent throughout your document. Another unique but professional way to make certain fonts pop, such as your employer line, is by expanding fonts. And we'll learn how to do all of these skills when you actually start to use your computer in Microsoft Word in a bit. When you expand the fonts, you just add a little bit of space between each letter in the line. Your name should be the biggest font on the page. We suggest using either the title or the heading 1 from the Style section in Microsoft Word. You'll want to increase your font size to no less than 16 to 20, but probably closer to 24 or 36. You'll just bring it up as big as you can bring it with still keeping it on one line and looking professional. So it'll depend on how long your name is. The contact line should also be fairly large. Now this is your city, state, phone number, email address, LinkedIn profile. It should all fit on one line. So you're just going to increase the size as much as you can and still fit it on one line. It's great to use a basic symbol, something like a circle, like a bullet, or a vertical line works really great to separate those different sections. It just is very pleasing to the eye. The section headers should be the next biggest font. So this is work experience, skills, education. They may be bigger than the contact line even. We suggest using heading 1 or heading 2 from the style section. So depending on what you used for your name, go down a level. Alternatively, you can also use caps or bold or underline or italics. Just be careful not to use more than 2 at the same time. So you don't want bold, underline, and italics. The font in the headers can be 2 points bigger than the body. It can be the same size as the body, that's up to you, but it can be as much as 2 points bigger than the regular font on your page. The body of the resume, so this is everything else, should be consistent and legible. So use the same font, use the same style throughout. Resume experts suggest 10 to 12 point font. You can also use the normal option in the style section, which I'll show you how to get to all of those things. The document should be visually appealing. Keeping in mind the top center is the part that gets seen first. Centering the name, the contact information, summary, and job title will be to your benefit. Section headings can also be centered, but left aligned is considered best, as it makes skimming for information easier. We'll want to do everything that we can to help the employer. Data under each of the section headers should be left aligned and needs to be consistent. Bullets should never be centered. Left aligned is best if using columns. Make sure that those are all even. Bullets in each section should be in uniform alignment. Notice the dotted line, the dotted red line on the left side here. We'll learn how to do this with the computer as well. Once you have your resume created, we recommend turning on grid lines in the View tab to be sure that everything lines up as anticipated. No matter the section, dates need to be on the right side. ATS will find them here, and align those using right tabs. We'll show you how to enter a right tab. Spaces and multiple tabs are unprofessional and make even a plain text document look odd. Section headers often come with odd spacing before and after the heading, making it hard to fit everything on the page. Although it's okay to change the spacing, just be sure that you change the spacing on all the sections to ensure that you have a consistent look. Bullets are a great way to draw attention to important items. There are many neat bullet options. In fact, you can import anything from a symbol menu, but only circles and squares are acceptable on a resume. Further, when saving as plain text, they all become dashes and asterisks anyway. Note, there are some special circumstances when a fancy bullet might help you stand out. For instance, if you're applying for a graphic designer position or maybe a teacher. Assuming that you know that the business is not using ATS or that you save as plain text before uploading. As mentioned in the alignment section, all bullets on the page, not just the section that needs to be aligned together. It's okay to have one section have columns and another not, but the left bullets should all line up together. Never place bullets or content outside the margins of the page. It's easy to skinny up the space between bullets to make more room on the page. Just be sure to do it to all of your bulleted sections so that they all match, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Bullets should be reserved for 3 to 6 items. You can put 2, but 3 is better. Anything less than 6 is acceptable. If you break bullets into columns, try making them even, so 2 columns of 3 items each or something like that. As far as punctuation is concerned in bullets, it's okay to use a period if the phrase is a complete sentence. If not, opt to not use them at all. Above all else, though, be consistent. If you use periods on every one of the bullets, on your whole document. Tables can be used for experience, education, and skill section. They make alignment options a little easier for some people. We'll cover these skills and more in the computer part of the class. It's important to note though, ATS does not like tables. Plain text will convert it out of table mode, but it reads the information differently. Many templates use tables with no borders, making it difficult to know that you're working with a table. You probably realize this if you've ever tried to change information in a template and it gets all wonky. Another reason to skip templates entirely. Table designs are cool, but do not use them in a resume. Remove all borders, remove all of that. And you can see on the page here, I have a table at the top with the borders, all the information in there, and then we remove the borders and notice how much better it looks. And I'll show you how to remove borders. When it comes to resumes, there's no room for error. A spelling or a grammar error lets a prospective employer know right off the bat that you are not worthy. Take the time to run a spell check. Better yet, run it through Grammarly. Grammarly.com is a wonderful option. It's free. You can either upload a document right on the website, or you can copy and paste the information in, or better yet, you can download the app as an add-on in Microsoft Word. It not only gives you spelling fixes, but also some grammar information. And even if you use a word a lot of times and it thinks you might want to use a different word, it'll throw those kind of suggestions out there for you. Avoid personal pronouns. So that would be like me, myself, or I. We don't want to ever use those on a resume. First person comes across as arrogant or cocky. Third person is a narrative and it tones it down a little bit. Although it's okay to use these on a cover letter, don't make the mistake of using them on a resume. I find that summaries or resume objectives, those things that we put at the top of the resume, they seem to be especially difficult for people to create without using personal pronouns. So what I suggest is that you write your sentence or your paragraph, get the words on the page, and then go back, make sure that you're using a power verb, and remove the I or, any of those personal pronouns. Abbreviations are taboo when resume writing, with just a few exceptions. We can use abbreviations for states, anything that is like a universal business world abbreviation. So for instance, Microsoft is universally known as MS. You can use an abbreviation for months and even for some industry jargon. Now that would be assuming that you are applying for a job in the industry that you're already working in. If a business's formal name has an abbreviation in it, like Inc., INC, then it is acceptable to use it on your resume. And don't use the ampersand, the little @ sign, unless it's a part of a business name or something like that. Don't use it just to shorten a section. And similarly, generally speaking, acronyms should not be used unless you have spelled out the words already. So you would put certified nursing assistant spelled out, and then in parentheses, you could put the CNA. However, if a job description uses an acronym, so for instance, they say you need to be OSHA certified, OSHA, then it's okay to use that same acronym in your resume when you're stating that you are OSHA certified. Just a few more things worthy of noting. copy your name and the contact information on a second page. Do your best to keep it under 2 pages. However, if you go over into a third page, copy it onto that page as well. Use that same format for the cover letter and the reference sheet. Then they all match. Remove hyperlinks from email and social media sites. It is acceptable to leave the hyperlink if you're posting a resume on a social media site like LinkedIn, but it's just easier to read and more professional to remove it. If you switch it to plain text and you save as plain text, it's going to remove them anyway. But if you happen to be turning in a Word document or a PDF document, it's much better if you remove them. Use a resume title to link to your job description. Use their exact words in that resume title. This makes it more likely to pass the ATS test. The formatting on the screen is the preferred formats for phone, locations, and dates. These are the areas that there's often a lot of inconsistency in. We will learn how to do this on the computer in a bit, but it's important that everyone has a copy of their resume as a Word document, a PDF document, and a plain text document. File name should be professional and include your last name. Because we suggest making a different resume for every job a person applies to, we also suggest entering a job title or the name of the employer in the file name as well. It'll be easier for you to track it later. The next section, we're going to delve into each of the following sections: resume introduction, experience, skills, education, and references. We'll start with the resume intro section. Notice that there's 4 different types of resume intros, and you can choose whichever one works best for you. We'll go over each one. An objective, which is often titled a resume or a career objective, is a couple of sentences that details how you excel, and it gives a short-term goal that applies directly to the job that you're applying for. They're usually centered. A summary, which is often called a qualification summary or a summary of qualifications, are just that. They're a list of a person's most notable achievements. They're typically a bulleted list. They're not written in sentence form. They're highlights, if you will. The focus of a qualification summary is to highlight relevant skills for the job. A resume profile or a professional profile is a combo of those first 2. So there's typically a couple of sentences that introduce a list of qualifications. Experts in a field use these very often. And lastly, a resume summary or a professional summary is similar to a qualification summary. However, the achievements typically have titles and they're described in more detail. Here are some examples of the different types of introductions. Introductions are not considered necessary. If a couple of lines of text introducing yourself will help you to get your foot in the door, it's worth the time and effort. If not, skip it. It's valuable real estate space on your resume. An objective works well when you have little or no work experience. You can highlight your character and your work ethic. Qualification summaries work well to show an alignment between current skills and a different position. A profile works well when you're applying for a similar role or in a similar industry. Resume summaries are best for people with lots of experience. Highlight your outstanding achievements. Feel free to pause here and read each one if you like. Moving on to the experience section, we have a list of things to include and things not to include. On our list of things to do, the experience section needs to be in reverse chronological order, meaning the most recent first. Each listing should include position, that's the most important piece, the business name, the city and the state, and the dates employed, aligning those to the right. If possible, list 2 or 3 job experiences. More than that becomes overwhelming. Fewer makes a job seeker look inexperienced. Under each of those listings should be a bulleted list of 3 to 6 descriptions of accomplishments. Stay tuned for more on that on the next slide. Descriptions should begin with action verbs. Remember that document that was shared in the last presentation, power verbs? Check those out again. Also, make sure that you're using the appropriate tenses. If you're currently employed, you'll use present tense. If you're no longer employed, use past tense. Experience should be in the last 7 to 10 years, unless relevant previous experience is needed for a particular job. On our list of things not to do in this section are using job duties or responsibilities included or all aspects of. We need to list items that make you stand out. How did you serve the customer better than your coworker? How did you do it better? A simple list of job duties copied and pasted from the web is no longer acceptable. An employer expects you to know how to push the broom. What did you do to go above and beyond? That's what they need to know. A wordy paragraph that's packed with duties, vague, or doesn't show impact is not going to be helpful. Descriptions that are not relevant to the job a person is applying for, not helpful. If you want to be a caregiver and you have fast food experience, describe the way that you communicated well with customers, provided personalized service, and had an attention to detail to ensure public safety, rather than took orders, accepted payments, and prepared and served food and drinks. Now we have the difference between job duties and an accomplishment, and it's pretty clear. A duty is what you did, an accomplishment is how well you did it. So when you consider your work ethic, what are you the most proud of? Make a list of all the things that you've done at each job that set you apart. How did you stand out? Were you ever recognized for a job well done? Did you win any awards or accolades? Did you come up with an idea that they put into place? Did you identify a problem and find a solution? Did you meet or exceed goals? Did you find a cost-saving measure? What nice things would a previous boss have to say about you? Now take that list and write accomplishment statements using power verbs to start those statements. And then list them the best stuff at the top of your list. On the screen here, we can see job responsibilities on the left side and resume accomplishments on the right side, telling them how well we performed. So we have planned events or organized a sold-out charity event for 300 people and raised $125,000. We have produced email campaigns on a monthly basis or produced 70 to 90 email campaigns and generated over 30 million emails to customers per month. We have successfully sold software solutions to various clients or increased sales from 400,000 to 3.2 million. We have conducted training sessions versus conducted compliance training for 80 plus managers across 3 locations. There's a huge difference. As you try to think of accomplishments, think of things that you did at work that made money or saved money or time. Improved a work process, making work easier or more efficient. Improved something else like safety or customer service. Solved a problem, built relationships, attracted new customers or retained existing customers. As you try to word your accomplishment, consider the acronym CAR. We drive them to get there. The C stands for challenge. What challenge did you face? The A stands for the action. What did you do to solve the problem? And the R is result. What was the outcome of your efforts? What was the result? Accomplishments should also be quantifiable if possible, so list the amount of money, the percentage, and the numbers whenever you can. ONET Online is a wonderful resource to help you find the skills and abilities that might align well from one position to another. Start here to get those juices flowing. Consider the scenarios and how you did the job. How did you get the knowledge? How did you acquire the skills? How did you come to have those abilities that are listed? So you'll just go to onetonline.org, type the position in the keyword box in the center of the page, choose one of the options that come on the page that fits real well, and then scroll to the skills, abilities, and knowledge section that lists out what's needed for that position, and find options that align with the job that you're applying for. The skills section is a great place to list your useful and applicable abilities that were not completely apparent in each of those job description areas under your work experience. A skills section should contain a large number of keywords, so make sure that you have the job description handy and that you've highlighted all of the important skills, abilities, and experiences. In the days of yesteryear, we created a skills section full of words that everyone else was using too. Things like dependable and hardworking and a great communicator. If those words are worthy of noting because you see them in the job description, the better bet is a small insignificant area at the bottom of your resume where you can place them all one after another just merely to initiate that response from ATS. Skills in your skills section, you want to include hard skills and soft skills. Hard skills are learned through job opportunities and add significantly to a job seeker's value. They're quantifiable, and the more of those that you have, the better. It's important to be truthful and only list items a person truly feels comfortable doing. Alternatively, if it's not applicable to the job, it might not be worthy of noting at all. Being a forklift certified is not helpful here at Job Service. Today, our skills section needs to be skills others do not have that make you special. CPR certified, forklift certified, proficient at Microsoft Office and QuickBooks. List a proficiency level and any specifics that would help you get the job, such as specific computer programs. Although soft skills are important, these should only be listed in a skills section if the seeker can give specific examples that prove the skill. If not, consider a small insignificant area where they're all listed one after another, just to elicit that response from ATS. So rather than say communication, you have to tell them how. Always be thinking about supported by how. Hiring managers look at tons of resumes and they'll look at overused buzzwords as fluff at best. You will not wow them by telling them how highly motivated you are or driven. You're going to need to show them that rather than tell them, or tell them how you did it. You'll be able to show them at the interview. The skills section can be placed at the top or just about anywhere that you want to in the resume, depending on the format. It can be called many things as well, but try not to confuse ATS by getting too wordy. Skills should be listed in a bulleted list, but no more than 6. Group your bullets based on hard and soft and put the best at the top on each. If you choose to do columns, put hard on the left and soft on the right, ordering them in order of importance. You'll need to show employers how you gained the skill, not tell them that you have the skill. It's great to add a level of proficiency as well. So make sure that the skills listed are things that this employer is looking for, and change that section as needed. And here are some examples of different skills sections. You can feel free to pause this slide and look at it in detail. Word choice really does matter, and this is where you'll want to refer to those power verbs again. Throw in action words throughout your resume to show that you're a team player or that you have the attitude of a leader. So how? Google words that describe whatever it is that you're looking to describe and use those words. Use something outside the box. Although the education section can easily contain certifications too, don't confuse professional certifications with honors and awards. Employee of the Month is not a certification. If the resume has room for an achievement section, that's where a professional certification or an award would go. Certifications belong in this section if they're coming from an accredited authority and if the program is more than just a class. Remember to include the accrediting agency like you would an educational institution. On our list of things to include, we have the specific degree. Do not abbreviate BA for bachelor's, type it out, bachelor's degree. The institution and the location, city and state. Note, if listing an online school, use the location printed on your school records. Military education can be listing in a separate section if applicable. And use the same heading styles as you did for the experience section, as far as your size of the font and whatnot. Only use date in the education if you're proud that it was accomplished in the past 3 years. Past that, remove it. These dates can be used to date you, and it can actually hurt your chances of getting a job. List certifications if they're relevant to the job that you're applying for. It's okay to state your GPA, but only if it's better than a 3.5. If there was a minor or a special accreditation that's applicable to the job, it's acceptable to add that under the education piece in a bullet or a smaller font. If education is in progress currently, as stated above, but add expected date of completion instead. And it's also okay to add the area of study if it's applicable to the job that you're applying for. We do not want to include high school education unless there's nothing better. So if you have college, you would skip your high school. If you don't have any college education, then high school is fine. We don't want to put any expired certifications unless you're currently in the process of renewing, and then clearly state that as well. Also, leave out old irrelevant certifications and, in general, any kind of dates. Acronyms should not be used, although if the job description uses them, it is acceptable. Note, as with everything, there are times when we might benefit from adding the high school education or an out-of-date certification, but only add these if it's likely to give you a leg up. If the education that you have is a requirement for the position, or if having it will put you in the cream of the crop, it might be worthy of putting it at the top of the resume instead of at the bottom. Otherwise, placement is completely based on the resume type. But it's up to you. Resume experts advise not to include references on a resume. If an employer wants the job description is going to clearly state that. The space on the resume should be used to talk up your qualifications, not to name drop. Also, gone are the days of yesteryear where at the bottom of the resume we'd say we'll give references upon request. It's a given that that's what you're going to do if they request them. So just remove that, it's outdated. When creating a reference sheet, do that on a separate sheet of paper, but use the same contact information that is on your resume so that it matches. They're probably going to need the name of 3 to 5 people. So try to come up with some people that were former supervisors or coworkers. Sometimes that's just not an option though. It is also acceptable to use teachers or professors, coaches, and even pastors in a pinch. Whoever it is needs to be able to speak to your work ethic. Family and friends should really only be used as a last resort. And always, always, always ask permission before you use somebody as a reference. Remind them that you're going to use them. If they said a year ago you could use them and you're going to use them again, shoot them a message real quick. Let them know you're going to be using them again and they can expect a phone call. Also remind them of the work that you did together and what a great job you did. It might be good to even supply them with a current copy of your resume and the job description of the job that you're applying for. They want to help you to succeed, so give them what they need so that they can tell the employer when they talk to them all the great qualities that you have and how it's applicable. Also consider what would be the best option for the job that you're applying for. If you have a great reference in the organization you're applying in, we'll use those people if you can. If there's a respected person in the industry that knows you, ask them if you can use them. Just like everything else, make it applicable to the job description or the job that you're applying for. When you're listing the information on your reference list, you're going to want to include their full name, their current title, the relationship to the job seeker, to you, the job seeker. So if they were your coworker or if they were your direct supervisor, that's what you'll want to put there. And then give them the phone number. That's kind of universal. You can also give the email address if that is the preferred contact method for that reference. And remember, there's a template that's available on Job Seeker Central on the DLI training site. Time for a quick recap. Do not use a template. I know word templates are so tempting, but they are not ATS friendly and they're very outdated. It's just not the best case scenario. Instead, choose your own style. And much like I've taught you in this presentation, we're going to use the design options, the theme options, and we'll really dive into that in the next session when we're actually writing it in Microsoft Word. Be consistent throughout your resume, and that's all of the different parts. It's going to be the way that your alignment is set up, your headings, make sure that they're the same font, they're the same boldness, they're the same whatever you've used to format those. Also that the spacing around them is all the same. Your bullets, if you're going to use circles, use circles. If you're going to use squares, don't use both. Also make sure that you're only using circles or squares. Those are the professional option. And then your font, you want to, of course, make sure that that's consistent, that you're using the same size throughout. Now, you know, your headings can be a little different size than your body, but make sure all the body parts are all the same, all the headings are all the same. Focus on your accomplishments. We aren't doing duties or responsibilities anymore. We're saying not only this is what I did, but this is how I did it better than my coworkers did. Don't forget to spell check. Always run a spell check when you're done with your final product there, and then save it, and save it in the 3 ways that we talked about. So you're going to want to save it as a Word doc for editing, as a PDF to be able to email that in, and then as a plain text for uploading. And check the checklist. We have that resume checklist that's out there on Job Seeker Central on the DLI Moodle training site. Get out there, find out that checklist, look at that over, and make sure that you've checked all those boxes before you submit the resume. There you have it, resume details. Next presentation will be writing the resume, starting with a blank document and Microsoft Word. Thank you so much for joining today. If you have any questions for us, give us a ring. Simply Google Montana Job Service Office, and from there, when you click on to Montana Works, you'll see a map of Montana with all the different job service offices, and you can just pick the one closest to you. Give us a ring. We have workforce consultants that are here to help. We can schedule a one-on-one appointment today to help you create a resume, or maybe just look it over. However, whatever help you need, we are here to help you. We can meet with you in person, but we can also meet virtually or even just over the phone. Give us a ring.